my best to do that. So I want to speak about a subject which is not very core, and I was thinking that it's going to be a little different, but it was heartening to see that a lot of speakers in some ways or the other kind of mentioned about this whole design thinking principles. May not have used the same terminology, but the entire thought process that goes behind creating products, creating systems, creating organizations, which is driven by not just the left logical thinking that all of us are, you know, tutored to from childhood, but a combination of both the right brain and the left brain. Very briefly, a short background about the bank. We are a very relatively new bank. Even today, I think we are the youngest bank. A couple of banks are in the process of setting up, but notwithstanding that, the key differentiator being that we started from scratch. I don't know of too many other banks that started from a base of zero. So I think that's one of the key achievements to, in a country like ours, to build a bank from scratch. There have been three phases of the bank. The first phase was gut entrepreneurship from 2004 to 2010. Most parts of the first 3-4 years were a breeze. The economy was doing well, the bank was growing. We did an IPO in the first very year, within 9 months, in fact, which was a very tough call to take. But I think that was the gut entrepreneurship that we went by. 2008, 9, and 10, all of us know that the industry kind of went through lots of topsy-turvy. A lot of our clients went belly up, and it was a very testing time for us. But in some sense, it did good to the bank because we knew that our systems, our portfolios, our assets have been stress tested in the worst of the times in that period. 2010, we said, now that we have grown into a meaningful, large-sized bank, having seen the worst behind us, and we were the largest small bank in some sense in 2010, we said now is the phase to cultivate process, systems, and controls. So from entrepreneurship, which is driven by a lot of gut, lot of intuition, you move on the other extreme where you say you want to grow big, so you need processes, control systems, you need to create hierarchies, you need to create, also devolution of hierarchy in some sense. But this was a great mix, and when I speak on this subject in some other forums, I like to dwell on some of the design thinking that went behind that, but I don't think today is the right time to do that. 2015 onwards, which is the current phase, is what we call as the large phase of the bank. We hope to be a meaningful large bank by 2020. Currently, we have 1% market share in the country, though we are the 5th largest bank. But by 2020, we hope to reach 2.5% market share. And obviously, the market is also expanding at a 10, 12, 15% annually on the credit and liability side. So the biggest takeaway here is we want to build mind share. Can we be the number one mind share bank in the country? We may not have the market share, but can we be as well known or as important to a customer's life as, let's say, some of the largest banks in the country are? I want to dwell a little bit on the DICE economy that we like to believe that we are in currently, where DICE stands for Design, Innovation, Creativity-Driven Entrepreneurship. I also want to speak a little bit about how in the mad rush to make everything digital, somewhere we are losing out on the human element, and a couple of stories from how we've done some frugal innovation, in the bank. So, as individuals, most of us are, clearly about 30 years of age, 35, 38, 40, etc. We grew up in a time in the country where if things worked, we were happy. If my Bajaj Chetak started after a 10th kick, I was very happy. If it didn't start, I would bend it on the side and, again try and kick it, right? So we found our own ways to make a living. Things were very functional in nature, right? If the TV didn't work, we would give a pat from the right? Nowadays, the TVs are slim, so you can't do that, but we have lived that, right? And if things didn't work, we would shake the antenna. But we were a very happy lot, surviving with whatever came our way. But I think this new generation, my kids included, I see so much of a difference, right? I mean, those guys are used to playing with iPads and mobiles, and the minute something doesn't work, they're cribbing. The minute something doesn't work with me, I send a tweet to the company with, putting the handle of the CEO, because I know that, look, I'm a crybaby now. As a consumer, I've become a crybaby. If things don't work my way, sorry, I'm going to make a fuss about it, right? So this entire new generation has come up, new thought process has come up, yet somewhere within the companies, we are still very functional in our way, right? We are still creating products which are nice to use, but may not be delightful, right? A lot of changes happening, at least on the user interface, like we saw some brilliant case studies in the last couple of days, but somewhere the mindset, because all of us grew, all of us are the millennial where things should work fine. was our attitude, right? So while new management philosophy tells us that, look, you have to design products for, make it nice, make it interesting, and so on and so forth, somewhere there is a dichotomy in our minds. Yet the consumer behavior is changing. The new set of entrepreneurs, right? The organizers of this brilliant event, great story. Again, 17-year-old, he started this company. We saw Philip, who dropped out of college at 14 and started his own design firm. So there are this new set of entrepreneurs who are not gifted. People who did not have the second name tagged to them. People who did not have land banks. People who did not have assets on which they built entrepreneurship. These are young minds, people who are taking risk, are designing products and solutions by identifying a key gap, right? Be it Ola, be it anybody, right? People are identifying what are the pain areas and can I come in as an entrepreneur here. Regulation is also helping us. Since the last 4-5 years, RBI in particular has loosened strings a lot in order to encourage new types of businesses to come in. And of course, all of this would not have been possible without the sweet play of technology, right? The entire digitalization, whatever you like to call it, but the mobility and all of that have come together, right? So I think this is a brilliant mix which is creating this new sense of entrepreneurship. Now I would like to focus on the fact which I mentioned, that in this entire mad rush, let us not forget the human behind the product and solution that we are creating. A lot of focus I heard was on preempting the customer's need, finding out that if he is in so-and-so mall, can I push a product to him? But I somewhere believe that I think we should not go to the other extreme. For example, if I walk into an old-fashioned shopper stop or West Side, and I am browsing through the shirts or whatever, and somebody walks in and says, sir, can I help you? I say, Baba, ruk ja yaar, let me figure out, right? I want to have a peaceful shopping time, and if I need you, I'll call you. So if that works for us when we are in a shopper stop, I think it works very well when I'm browsing my mobile. I don't want a pop-up saying, do you want to buy something? No, Baba, I don't want to. If I want to buy, I'll ask you, right? So I think we need to balance it out, and this balance usually happens after we swing from one extreme to the other, and somewhere we find the sweet spot. But this is also about, as organizations, challenging the assumptions, figuring out, can we do things differently? Can we zoom in and zoom out? That is to say that while I am focusing at a long term, can I also look at the short-term requirements of the customers and so on and so forth. But because a few of the speakers have already spoken on this, a brilliant presentation in the morning on leadership attributes and so on and so forth, I don't want to repeat that. Now, in order to make things interesting, all of us love stories, all of us watch movies, and every movie has a brilliant hero, right? I mean, what is a movie which does not have a hero? And hero is only as good as the villain behind it, right? So if there's a Hitler, or if there's a Shakal, or if there's a Dr. Dang, the hero becomes all the more interesting. And the villain is only as bad as the murders and crime that he commits, right? So a brilliant story should have really powerful 3 characters. And the way I'm going to talk about the next couple of case studies or stories in the bank will try and put the a perspective around these 3 elements of hero, villain, etc. Now, this is a familiar scene typically, and no offense intended, in public sector bank branches, right? Unfortunately, private sector and MNC branches don't have too many people walking in. For us, the issue is about how do I get people into my branches till such time that I am paying those high rentals and maintaining these branches. But in PSU banks, you have serpentine queues, people waiting. Sometimes they sit down because they're waiting for their turns, and these are not railway station pictures. These are actual branch pictures taken from across the country. Why does this happen? Because while there is a mad rush among all of us to tap into the affluentials as a community, people with smartphones and people with the money bags, there is this whole country, 50% of the country is financially excluded. RBI wants all of us to start doing financial inclusion. Pradhan Mantri has started this whole great initiative about opening bank accounts, all of that. And as a bank, we were wondering a couple of years ago when we launched this product called Yes Money, that look, I am a 500 branch bank. How am I going to do financial inclusion, right? I don't even have branches outside tier 2 towns, and I have those mandatory unbanked branches, but that's a drop in the ocean. So we said, let's break the problem into 2 parts. Financial inclusion always reminds you of the rural hinterland, right? Where you don't have electricity or telecom or anything else, gram panchayat, etc. Can I put a branch there? But there's also equal number of financially excluded in cities, right? Peep out of any high tower in Bombay and you'll find people living in shanties. people who have migrated from all across the country, these people are also financially excluded. They also need basic banking services. So we said, can we break this problem and focus only on the urban poor, urban migrant, right? So we said, how do we do? So we went out. And we spoke to a few people. The traditional philosophy said open accounts for them or give them loans, right? These are two things that come to your mind because insurance, for example, is a more evolved product. So we went out, we spoke to like hundreds of people, but we did not ask them a typical market research questionnaire, because if I were to ask him a questionnaire of what do you want, choose one of five, etc., I am outsourcing the problem of designing products to those guys, right? Somebody who's not used banking, how can I ask him what do you want? So we just went and spent time with them. We said, let's understand what do you do as a, as a person, as a living. I mean, how do you live? So we figured that, look, these guys are manual laborers, are daily wage laborers. They have to hunt for business every day. They stand in queues from 7:30 in the morning, and if they're lucky, they get some job. They earn 200, 300 bucks every day. Some of it they spend on their basic necessities, but they save rest of it. So on an average, 6,000 to 7,000 is what he earns every month. His biggest issue is, I want to send some money back home because my wife and my mother and whoever else is back in the village, and I need to send money to them. Currently, what does he do? He stands in the serpentine queue in various branches, right? Because somewhere back home, they have a account with public sector bank, which has, been kind enough to open a branch there from a social objective perspective. So he has some account, or one of his relatives has an account, or the village has a couple of accounts. So he says, I'll transfer the money there, somebody will withdraw and give it to my wife. Or he uses money order, goes to a post office, stands in a queue again and, sends the money. So he said, this guy actually doesn't want my savings account. Loan though he doesn't want at all, and I don't think I'm going to lend money to this guy because I don't know his antecedents, precedents, I don't have any security, etc. So loan is still far away. So if remittance is what he wants to do, then let me focus on the remittance issue. So obviously the villain is, the victim is the daily wage earner, and villains are the banks which only can operate in the banking hours. Poor guy, every time he stands in a banking hour on a weekday, he loses that 300 bucks for that day, right? Because it takes him a couple of hours. And while you have a priority banking sector, desk in every branch, you don't have a not so priority, fast track account, right? I mean, only the rich guys get access, right? The platinum card holders get to the fast track. The poor guy who actually needs, whose time is really worth his daily earning, has to stand in a queue, right? But, you can't really blame banks because unfortunately, that's the law of land, right? That's the law of nature. So we said, can we help him with remittance? And luckily, around the time when we were contemplating all of this, IMPS was launched, and we put together a solution where we got some of our banking correspondents and through them the sub-BCs to put our remittance knowledge bridge, as we call it. So we enabled the small mom and pop stores in every locality, 50,000 of those across the country. We enabled them to use our portal. So this guy has to go there. He puts his money with him, gives his mobile number, and luckily, out of the 950 odd million mobiles, around 600 million mobiles are with the poor guys, right? These are the feature phones, phones which usually have 10 rupee balance, largely for incoming calls, but he has a functional phone. So he gives his phone number, he gives the account number of the recipient beneficiary, and using IMPS or NEFT, within a couple of seconds, his remittance happens. The BC obviously has an account with us, which I debit as soon as I get an alert from his end, and the money goes to him and he pays a commission. Now, if you were to look at how he would have done it otherwise, he would have paid 1.5% to 2% commission in a PSU bank, or would have paid 5% commission in a postal office, wasted 3-4 hours of his day, and so on and so forth, right? But here it happens with a click of a button. He gets an instant SMS to tell him that the money has been remitted. Now, in the last 22 odd, so when we launched this product, obviously we were the first ones to do it. NPCI was of great help because both Yes Bank and NPCI went to RBI to tell them that, look, we have started doing this on pilot basis. If you could please give your stamp of approval, we'll make a product paper out of it, which they were happy to do. And, eventually a lot of other banks are doing it, and, they have created their own networks in the system. But suffice to say that we're still doing around 12% of the total domestic remittance volumes in the country. Compare that to 1% market share that we have on So we are obviously 12 times of our fair share in terms of domestic remittances. Around 45 lakh unique customers have benefited. 50% of the transactions are happening in the pre or post office hours. So I am saving his daily earning. And we did some kind of a social impact analysis, with one of the big four companies, and we figured out that in the last 24 odd months, we've saved 2.2 crore hours of man hours of largely poor people's earning time. And because this product was fairly unique, it does not overload my core banking system because none of it happens on my system. This product has won lots of awards. So this is one of the stories which we are very proud of in the bank, that as a small bank, without needing to create too much of infrastructural overheads, we are creating a system which is benefiting the financially excluded people beyond anything else. The small mom and pop stores also earn a lot of money because 8, 10, 15 rupees for 2 minutes of work is not bad at all. And if he does 20, 30 transactions a day, he is earning 500, 600 rupees more, which if you calculate into 30 is paying off his rentals for the store. Right? Today, mom and pop stores are struggling because the rentals are so high, but just by enabling him with this Yes Money, I am taking care of his rentals. Then we said, can we go a step further, right? Because this is an assisted model and meant for the poorest of the poor. But there are far more people who may not be at this level. They are able to manage banking on their own a little bit. Maybe they are in tier 2 towns, tier 3 towns where I don't have branch presence, but I have a very good network with cooperative banks, right? I bank with most of the cooperative banks in the country, and there's a relationship there. And to reiterate, there are 600 million feature phones in this country. While everybody is fighting for the 300 million smartphones, of which a very small percentage has internet connectivity on a regular basis, we said for the next 5 years, for sure, the smartphone cost is not going to come below 3,000 bucks or 2,000 bucks, irrespective of some, people who want to claim they'll give a mobile phone at 900 rupees and so on and so forth, which we saw recently. But it's our assumption that for the next 5 years, there's a brilliant window of opportunity to tap this 600 million people. How do we do? We tied up with this, company which creates a SIM sleeve, which is basically a sticker-like SIM which sticks on your existing SIM card. It is agnostic to the type of SIM. It is agnostic to the mobile service provider. The moment you stick your, and this is a fairly cheap SIM card, the moment you stick it, your mobile, kind of becomes enabled to do basic transactions. For the first time, you need to register yourself and you need to introduce a few account numbers and so on and so forth. Now, the assumption is here again that most of these guys are not buying tickets on Book My Show or are not buying tickets on or doing all of those fancy transactions. Most of these guys do two types of transactions. One is to remit money to their core account. Second is to do top up on their phones. Right? These are the two basic requirements. And can I enable him through this, which is at the ease of his own mobile phone? This product kind of enables that. It works on SMS, which is encrypted, and hence it does not need. So as long as your SIM is active and you are in a network coverage area, you can do this transaction. Again, it uses the existing infrastructure of NPCI and RBI to close the transaction. We charge basic fees, which is very minimal. So we get float income from the cooperative bank, which opens an account with me and keeps some buffer there. We also charge a very small transaction fee for every SMS that is sent out. The SMSs are charged at the normal rate, so he doesn't have to pay that 5 rupee, 10 rupee cost per special SMS. This is a normal standard SMS. So a couple of SMSs per month is all he has to spend on once he has bought the basic kit. So this is the second one where we are saying that from assisted model of financial inclusion and remittance, can I go to self-service model? This product is in pilot stage right now and hopefully should be launched sometime this early next month. Third, coming to e-commerce, the whole philosophy of design thinking is also, can you look outside of your silos? Can you look outside of your own organizations? Can you stitch together players? Can you think from the customer's perspective? So, we used to do banking with a couple of e-commerce companies, providing them the standard banking services, transaction banking, so on and so forth. And we realized that the biggest pain for e-commerce companies is not that they are bleeding money because of the discounts, which they are. It's also not the marketing spends that they do to create a brand, right? That's the second largest spend. But the biggest issue right now is that the customer is not loyal. He is a bargain hunter. Second, just because he can return the product, he ends up returning too many products, right? And the entire logistics becomes a nightmare. And this guy is not happy, right? Because the shirt was smaller or the color was a little different, or just because I can return the product back, I like to return it back, right? I tried it on, I didn't like it, I gave it back. Amazon, for that matter, currently is advertising Hamari Dukan or Apni Dukan, right? His biggest selling point is you can return the product like you would do in the neighborhood store, right? So come and shop with me. But the stress that it puts on the system, on the logistics and reverse logistics is too high. So and the reconciliation, right? It typically takes 7 to 15 days for the money to be given back to me if I have paid upfront, or if it is COD, then that question doesn't come into picture. So we said, can we stitch it together? And we integrated Yes Bank's APIs with Snapdeal and ensured that the reconciliation and the refund to the customer happens within 30 minutes of product being returned, right? So 90% of the transactions end up getting a refund within the first 30 minutes of the guy returning the product, and balance happens within 1 hour. So we've shortened the reversal time from what used to be like 7 to 10 days, and some amount of anxiety in the customer that, yaar, mera paisa wapas aaya ki nahi, is my wallet loaded or not, or so on and so forth. It's instantaneous. Then we said, can we go a step further? A lot of people, including people like me, where both the husband and wife are working, usually you don't have time to get your product delivered at home. And returning is, again, a challenge, right? So your maids usually don't understand, or you're not confident in doing that. So we tied up with this company, which is a startup, which creates smart boxes. Smart boxes enable you to take the delivery at that point. We've installed 12 of these in Delhi on a pilot basis. And so when you choose destination, instead of choosing home, office, or elsewhere, you can just choose this smart box. This has a two-factor authentication built in, so you get SMS alerts, etc. You key it into the smart box, take your delivery. You don't like it, you put it back again there, and the company will pick it up. So when you're going back from work, or whatever, when you're going through metros, you can pick this. We also enabled COD here, so you can actually pay with your card on the spot, and so you don't have to pay upfront to use Smartbox. So these were some of the interesting things that we're doing that I like to share. Most importantly, the reasons that I chose these were that the thinking that went behind this was a little different. It was not the standard way of addressing problems or finding solutions, and I thought it might be useful for this crowd. Thanks. Any questions? Or else I'm fine. Thank you.
The last topic for the event Smarttech BFSI is technology in BFSI sector, the changing paradigm. I request Mr. Gururaj Rao, VP and CIO of Mahindra and Mahindra Financial Services Group, to come onto the stage.
Sorry, I won't keep you between, away from lunch for a long time. I'll try to shorten it as much as possible. And being last in the queue, most of the points would have been covered. So let's see what's different that I have. I tried to put up the presentation from an activity or from a deliverable perspective for a CIO or for an IT leader, otherwise, the scenario has been covered by most of the people here, the previous speakers, and very eloquently and very elaborately. So I'll just go on to the slides quickly. So, I have collected in the last few weeks a few sample headings, okay? The Economist, for example, reported that after about 50 years, the Moore's Law may be coming to an end. Now, Moore's Law helped everyone to, see tremendous leap in the use of technology. Now, if the hardware progress is going to slow down, what is going to happen to the speed of use of technology? That's a huge question that everybody needs to look at. For the past 50 years, things have been doubling almost 2 years, on a generic basis. Okay, this is layman's terminology, but it's been working well. Now, if you're going to slow down the progress on the hardware front, the applications, the usage of the hardware is going to slow down. But that's a reality today. Now, A lot of activities happen on smartphones, laptops, tablets, everything, and there is a security risk attached to it. There are new security measures coming up, but the threats also catch up with it. So security as a paradigm has become a large thing. So that's another aspect to be considered by the IT leaders whenever you talk about new solutions. Two-factor authentication, I mean, you do a lot of stuff, but security still remains a concern every day. Barack Obama, the fight between Apple and the Department of Justice, forcing a private organization to create a feature and trying to make them a bit weaker in terms of encryption, that became a big point of discussion, right? Similarly, there is a fight going on between Microsoft and DOJ, right? The US government wants to see an email which is stored by Microsoft in an Ireland data center. I mean, how much can the government access? What happens to cloud services? So would an Indian company like to work with a US corporation for cloud services, etc.? So these are the questions which come up. Now this, I guess many people must have followed. The best Go player being beaten by AlphaGo. It's like 10 years ago, Deep Blue beat Kasparov, and 5 years ago, the Jeopardy game also was won by the IBM Watson. So, artificial intelligence or machine learning or whatever terminologies people may use, it's coming to be better and better and better. The maturity levels are increasing. So how are we going to use that in our day-to-day lives? That's the next point. For example, HBR says Watson can recognize cancer better than even skilled physicians. Now, that's a debatable point, but then that's what some of the studies show. And hence, the final statement is, if this is the way you're going to use technology, we'll need a new society which guarantees opportunities for full employment, protects the privacy, and enables prosperity for everybody. That's a very big ask from the society itself. If technology is going to do all the work, there's no employment. There's no employment, then how do you progress as an economy, right? There's a lot of stuff going out there. In fact, Bill Gates is also, has spoken eloquently on the progress of technology and the loss of employment. In the next 20 years, he says most people will be unemployed. So the changing paradigms, if we see, I just put them under 3-4 buckets. The digital business models, what are the requirements from technology in every organization? We are the CIOs, so we know what happens to us on a daily basis. Technology advances, specifically a few examples of new technologies which are being leveraged. These are just being captured, okay? And the vendor landscape. And lastly, what are the steps to be done in case of innovation? This was a nice picture which I found on the internet, and I just thought, it makes sense, especially because Mahindra Finance is a rural organization. Though we are pretty large in terms of size, we are leaders predominantly in rural and semi-urban areas. We are about 40,000 crores in assets and 6,000 crores in net worth, but our business is rural and semi-urban India. And hence this picture made a lot of sense, how digital is covering the whole of rural India. So if we view from a customer or a market point of view, there's a lot of information today being churned. Everybody spoke about the Aadhaar database, the bank accounts and everything. Now all these are data. How are we tapping into these? The Digital India program, which has been going on for many years now, has churned out a lot of data. You can actually find out under the Indira Awas Yojana, some poor villager has been given some money to build a small house. How big is the house? What is the person? Even a photograph of the person. All this is available on the internet. You have databases of schools in India. How many schools, which teachers, what medium, how many students, everything available. These are databases which you can connect to and tap them. So today, technology has given too many choices to the customer. Just now we heard about examples of, when the Yes Bank representative spoke very well, Amit, about the choices for the customer. So there are too many choices. That's again another aspect which is putting pressure on us. Products, yep. Regulations. Regulations not only keep changing, but they try to keep up with the changes in technology, try to keep up with the business models. Sometimes they also lead the business models, like in the payments bank example. I mean, it's the regulation which is making the move. Channels now, I mean, people have moved from physical to virtual to a combination of everything. There are real-time transactions happening in everything. There is online advice. You can scream, shout. You can, since I come from Mahindra's, if your axle is broken, your service is delayed by 2 hours, you can write to Anand Mahindra on Twitter and get a response. All that happens regularly. And from an IT standpoint, there's a huge set of activities happening. There are startups, there are M&A strategies, and security is a shifting goalpost, as I mentioned earlier. Business models, yeah, we all know e-commerce and online aggregators. I mean, many people have already mentioned about it. Service-based offerings now is a reality everywhere. You don't need to buy anything. You get services for everything. And focused services. I think I've touched upon those. Yeah, so what happens, so what does the business want from IT? First is, enable the ecosystem creation. Today, no organization remains an island. Nobody wants to be an island. You want to tie up with your suppliers, you want to tie up with your buyers, you want to tie up with even some of the competitors for some of the shared services. People are willing to do that. All the processes are to be digitized. In fact, Deepak spoke very nicely about the digitization and the digitalization. Work from anywhere, that's the new mantra for employees. The workforce wants a lot of freedom. They want BYOD, they want to work from anywhere. They don't want to be burdened by a lot of constraints, limitations. Omni-channel, the customer wants everything seamless, everything real time. Time to market, obviously the sales and the marketing guys want everything fast. And this is where I was trying to say that, the overall organization wants to leverage everything that's inside and outside the organization. So, while the big data as a terminology is again used very loosely, we can see that, as I mentioned earlier, there is a lot of data getting generated inside and outside the organization, especially outside the organization. How do you tap into that? How do you make decisions based on those? That's again a big question. These are the things that an IT department is today asked to deliver. And based on what principles? So design all the processes digital first. Disrupt using all the new technologies. Leverage internal or external. In fact, it is a fact that there is more technology outside the organization than inside. So the world of creating inside, implementing inside, everything is gone. The first thing is to see where can you get things fastest and the best. UX, that's very critical. Work from anywhere, I spoke about it. Yeah, there has to be dedicated innovation and experimentation. You can't be 100% sure of the solutions that you're doing. That oh, this is going to be implemented. This is going to go this way. This is going to be the usage, the benefits, etc. There has to be enough scope for experimentation within the organization. And the information security framework has to be flexible. It has to be risk-based. It cannot be based on dogma. It cannot be based, oh, for a laptop, I'll have a separate policy. For a tablet, I'll have a separate policy. Sorry, that world is gone. You need to have a seamless policy for a lot of these things. So the architecture has to support quick integrations, and a lot of things, the digital initiatives need to be insulated from what is happening at the back end in terms of day-to-day operations. Day-to-day operations need to be 100% perfect. They need to go 100% available, secure. But a lot of these digital things are innovations, are experimentations, so they need to be separated from the mainstream. So as people would call it, bimodal. And we have seen SBI, Yes Bank, and the insurance company speaking about a lot of what they are doing. So I wouldn't get into this. Yeah. So what are the specific technologies, at least what I find interesting and earth-shaking, actually speaking, are cloud, consumerization. Because today you can say that there need not be technology done inside as a default. The first default option is to see for technology outside. Anything that you want, just see outside first. Then you talk about whether you want to buy something, you want to implement something, you want to develop something. Consumerization of technology, that's again another huge factor, because people see technology better in their personal lives than in the organization. Then the demand comes in, oh, why can't I get this? Why can't I do this? Why can't I, so many questions. Open source today is absolutely mature. I mean, I would fully support most of those solutions. They are enterprise grade. People can use them confidently. Big data, I mentioned again. IoT. IoT is a very, very useful, technology which has been growing well. It depends on how people use it. Of course, it has impact on security. It has impact on the data analysis that you will be doing. But it's a extremely potent and a technology which has a lot of potential for people to explore. Currently, they are not. People are not doing it. Blockchain, again, I mean, a lot of hype, but there are some use cases. Uh, I mean, those who are, see, especially industries or the transactions where there's no current standard or efficient centralized mechanism, blockchain is a good solution. And artificial intelligence, I mentioned about AlphaGo and Watson, excellent ones. The vendor landscape, yeah, this is one of the most interesting questions that we all face, right? I mean, there used to be an adage that if you nobody was fired for buying IBM, but today you can't say that. Neither will you make IBM an automatic choice or a Microsoft or a Oracle. You never know when divisions are hived off, when they buy something, sell off to somebody. So, will you go to the startups? Again, that's a question mark. Startups have this series of funding. They have their issues of strategies. They have, VCs dictating terms. A lot of that. M&As, I mean, we have seen what happens to the, various organizations due to the M&As happening there. And the open source community. Open source is an excellent community. Whether you take Apache or anybody else, it's a wonderful community for sourcing a lot of solutions. And if you have the right support, say, I'm sure there are representatives from Red Hat also. You can do a lot of stuff out there. So what do we do? So we need to create multilingual image-based channels. In fact, in the S-Bank presentation, we saw some, in the other one, where we saw that, you can make it less of words and more of pictures. But it is essential. I work for the rural, business. So I can say that we do a lot of communication in 10 different languages. Okay, so it's extremely essential to overcome the English barrier, the literacy barriers, and give the customers what they want. Performance, I mean, that's very basic. I don't even get into that. Analytical tools, yes, as the variety of data, the velocity of data, the volume of data changes, you need to have better and better and higher levels of maturity in analytical tools. Security, gadgets. I mean, today there's no end to gadgets. Wearables is the latest one, of course, but I'm sure very soon we'll have implantables. We'll have things which will get inserted into our body and will be monitored based on those. And the IT team also has to evaluate new technologies, incubatees. And how do we do that? Through this measure, innovation. So there, it is necessary to tie up, to collaborate, to look at all the activities that are happening across the globe. There has to be a dedicated effort to tie up with these incubators, accelerators, VCs, you call them angel investors, whatever. All those people see what is happening regularly. Shortlist, evaluate, implement those solutions. You can invite people to co-create with you. Conduct hackathons. I mean, like I said, more technology outside than inside. Same way, there is more intelligence, more knowledge outside than inside the organization. So you can do it with your own employees. You can do it with outsiders. You will get a lot of thoughts, lot of solutions. And you yourself incubate. You put in the infrastructure, you mentor people, you invest into that, you can do that. So that's the role of IT. I think I've finished. Thanks very much. If you have any questions, I'll take them. The only question is lunchtime.
I would like to invite the CEO of Explore Exhibitions to give the thank you note.
You all know we have come to the end of this today conference. I would like to extend my gratitude and thanks to all the delegate speakers from the BFSI sector. And I also want to thank our sponsors and supporting partners, Government of Goa, Deloitte, VMware, Oli Data Center, Finistech IT Labs, DDI, CS Technologies, Ministry of Electronics and Telecommunication for the support, and I hope this you will had a good time over here networking and leisure. Hope to see you for the next annual. The dates and the time would be announced very shortly. Thank you.
Mr. Kushal Singh, the bus has been arranged, the shuttle has been arranged for 2:30, so it will be leaving from the venue by 2:45. So please have lunch and proceed towards the shuttle. Them if you can, and I will come around and collect all the forms from you. Please fill up the Olive Data and VMware forms.
I was very happy to be at the Explore Smarttech BFSI conference in Goa. It was wonderfully organized, and one thing which was remarkable was the content of the conference. The speakers were excellent, and it was a great learning experience for all of us. So I was very happy to be part of it as a speaker. Thank you.
The conference has been extremely useful, talking about relevant topics, the difference between digitalization as well as digitization, the new innovations, and all other relevant issues related to the banking and financial services industry. So I would urge the team to continue having such conferences. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So I think a concept of this kind is very useful because you interact with a lot of people from the industry. That's one. The second is there's a lot of interactions happening with the vendors, partners, and their solutions. And the third thing is, since it's an off-site, it gives you a break from the day-to-day activities and think a bit coolly about what is possible in the future. Thanks.
Yeah, hi. I am Anil Potfode from Dadaji Dagji Infotech, Bombay. This is the first time we are participating along with Explore Exhibitions, Bangalore. The event held in Goa from 21st to 22nd of April was quite good. The arrangement, overall coordination, everything was well done by the team. And as a vendor, we have received some good inquiries, and hopefully we will generate some business out of it. We wish them all the best. Thank you.
What?
About Smarttech.
Thanks for this event, and the BFSI gathering was really awesome. Most of the insurance companies and big banks has attended this, and as a partner we are happy to be a part of this BFSI conference in Goa. Thanks Smarttech for organizing this, and we are looking forward to have these kind of events in future. Thank you very much.
So, the Smarttech BFSI event, it was a fantastic event in terms of the turnout and the quality of the people who came, like the senior people who came over here, and we love to participate the next time as well. So good luck to Explore team actually. Thank you.
I think it's an extremely interesting conference that the team at Explore has put together. A very young team, but brilliant execution. What I really liked was the kind of topics that they deliberated on. The speakers were all top notch, a huge amount of learning for all of us and the delegates as well. So all the best and keep it up. Thank you.